Long ago, there was a prosperous city where knowledge, trade, and happiness once flourished. But a dark shadow had fallen over that city, a shadow that devoured every smile. That shadow had a name, Hakeem Luqman, Saani, a man named Luqman, but by nature utterly cruel and greedily beyond measure. With nothing more than mediocre knowledge and a handful of medicines, he had brought the entire city under his grip. Taking advantage of his position as the royal physician, he had pushed through a strict law. No one could sell medicine or herbs without his permission. The result? Even a simple fever remedy was sold at the price of gold. A poor man could not obtain treatment, even by giving away his entire life savings. If someone could not pay, the Hakeem would take their home, their livestock, or keep their children as slaves. For the people of the city, illness had become more terrifying than death itself, because death gave freedom. But the Hakeem's medicine gave only bondage. It was in this age of darkness that one day Mulla Nasruddin rode into the city on his old donkey, a large turban on his head, and a knowing smile on his face. He saw that the market had no laughter, no light, only fear. People passed one another with averted eyes, and at every corner the Hakeem's soldiers stood searching, making sure no one was hiding cheap medicine. The mullah settled himself under an old tree in the middle of the city. Just then, his eyes fell upon an old father sitting outside the Hakeem's threshold, weeping, holding his sick son. A soldier shoved him and declared, "Until you bring a gold coin, the Hakeem will not even check your son's pulse." This sight deeply troubled Mulla Nasruddin's heart. He went to the old man and said, "Brother, stop crying. Crying brings no medicine and eases no pain. It only breaks your resolve." The old man, with tear-filled eyes, replied, "O traveler, this is no physician. He is an executioner. He has made half the city his debtor. I have nothing left to give. My son will die." The mullah stroked his beard, looked toward the sky, and said in a loud, clear voice, "When falsehood rules, even a single word of truth is rebellion, and today I shall be that rebellion." He immediately announced to the city, "Hear me, O people of this city. I am a physician of the old school. I have a cure for every ailment. But the price of my medicine is not gold, it is your true story." This strange declaration spread through the city like lightning. People were both astonished and full of hope. When the news reached Hakeem Luqman Saani, his arrogance ignited with fury. He ordered his soldiers in a rage, "Bring that turbaned fellow to my court immediately. I want to see how much power his medicine holds." The soldiers went to the Mulla Nasruddin at once. Mulla Nasruddin smiled, took his donkey's rope, and said, "Let's go, brothers. The time has come when truth knocks on the door of falsehood's palace." And so Mulla Nasruddin set off with the soldiers, firm in his conviction that the end of tyranny comes not always through the sword, but through the spark of reason and truth. The tyrant Hakeem's court was no less than a king's. Expensive carpets were spread all around, and the fragrance of rare herbs filled the walls, yet even in that fragrance, the blood and sweat of the oppressed could be sensed. Hakeem Luqman Saani sat upon a high throne, surrounded by his soldiers. When Mulla Nasruddin entered in his worn-out clothes and old turban, the Hakeem looked him up and down with contempt and let out a mocking laugh. "So you are that quack physician who claims to be distributing free medicines in my city?" Mulla Nasruddin replied with complete calm, "Hakeem Sahib, wisdom belongs to no one as private property. It is a gift from God given to bring peace to hearts, not to polish one's own shop." Anger flooded the Hakeem's eyes. He snapped, "Enough nonsense. I possess the rarest medicines in the world. If you are a true physician, tell me what is the cure for the patients who come to me, and if you fail, you will be expelled from this city forever." The mullah smiled and said, "Very well, but I have one condition. I will treat only those here whom your expensive medicines have made even sicker, and the price of my cure will not be gold. It will be that golden scale of yours, on which you weigh people's desperation." A hush fell over the court. The Hakeem thought, "What on earth can this mad traveler possibly cure?" He thundered, "Agreed. If you win, the scale is yours. If you lose, your turban and donkey will be kept under royal stable supervision. The mullah called for the first patient, the same old father, whose son was caught between life and death. The Hakeem declared, "His son has a lung disease that can only be treated by my musk medicine, which costs 100 gold coins." The mullah checked the boy's pulse, then turned to the Hakeem and said, "This child does not need musk. He needs the coolness of justice." The mullah took out a simple clay cup from his bag and poured plain water into it. Then he told the father, "Blow into this cup, pour all the sorrow of your heart and the story of the Hakeem's cruelty into this breath." When the old man, weeping, told his story and breathed into the water, the mullah gave that water to the child to drink. He then declared in a loud voice, "The medicine for oppression is always found in the prayer of the oppressed." Within minutes, color returned to the child's face and he opened his eyes. The people in the court cried out in awe. The Hakeem, rattled, shouted, "This is sorcery. How can anyone be healed by plain water?" The mullah replied calmly, "Hakeem Sahib, when the heart is pure, even water becomes nectar, and when the intention is corrupt, even musk becomes poison." This was only the beginning. The mullah had begun shaking the walls of the Hakeem's empire. The Hakeem signaled to his senior soldier, then said loudly, "Mulla Nasruddin, healing one child doesn't make you a master physician. That was mere coincidence. If you are truly a great healer, cure this my black potion." He produced a golden flask and poured a deep black liquid into a fine goblet. Smiling wickedly, he said, "This contains the extract of the world's most dangerous herbs. Whoever drinks it, their body goes cold and their tongue falls silent. The antidote is locked only in my vault. If you have something that can counter this poison, present it. Otherwise, admit your defeat." The people in the court trembled with fear. Everyone knew the Hakeem had silenced many opponents this way. Mulla Nasruddin picked up the goblet. He sniffed it. Then he was silent for a moment and spoke, "Hakeem Sahib, the cure for poison lies not in medicines, but in the intention of the one who draws out the poison. I am ready to drink this, but I have another condition. If I drink it and survive, you must today free all the oppressed people you have enslaved for debt." The Hakeem thought, "This man is walking straight into the mouth of death." He immediately agreed, accepted. Mulla Nasruddin said Bismillah and drank the entire goblet in one breath. A death-like silence fell over the court. Everyone held their breath, waiting for the mullah's body to go blue or for him to collapse. The Hakeem began to swell with triumph. "See, before my wisdom, this turbaned man has fallen." But his words were not even finished when the mullah burst into hearty laughter. "Hakeem Sahib, your drink was quite delicious, just a little short on sugar. Next time, add a touch of honey." The Hakeem's eyes went wide in disbelief. "How is this possible? Why didn't you die?" The mullah calmly pulled out an old dried onion from his bag and began peeling and eating it. He said, "Hakeem Sahib, the poison you gave me was far less dangerous than the medicines you sell to the poor at extortionate prices. My medicine is this simple onion and sincere intention. A person whose stomach is filled with lawful sustenance is untouched by your manufactured poisons." The crowd erupted with joy. Long live Mulla Nasruddin. For the first time, Hakeem Luqman Saani felt the fear of his own defeat. He understood now that this traveler was no ordinary physician. He was a storm capable of toppling the walls of tyranny. Realizing that Mulla Nasruddin could not be defeated by poison or trickery, the Hakeem changed his strategy and turned toward the city's king. The king was always a suspicious man who feared he was suffering from some unknown illness. The Hakeem whispered in the king's ear, "Your Majesty, a sorcerer-traveler has arrived in the city who is cheating people with false comfort. If he casts a spell on you, the kingdom may be in danger." The king grew alarmed and immediately summoned the mullah to the royal court. Mulla Nasruddin arrived at the court on his donkey. The Hakeem was already seated beside the king, smiling smugly. The king thundered, "O man, the Hakeem says you pretend to heal without medicines. Examine me today. If you do not find the right solution to my illness, you will be imprisoned forever." The mullah held the king's pulse, looked into his eyes, then drew a long, cool breath. Silence filled the court, the Hakeem thought. Now the mullah is trapped. The mullah said with great seriousness, Sultan, you do not suffer from any common illness. You have contracted the disease of golden walls. Its cure exists in no herb in the world, only in the soil found beneath the shoes of the most contented and at peace person in this city. The king asked in bewilderment, what kind of cure is this? The mullah answered, Sultan, until you rub that soil upon your head, your restlessness will not end. But remember, that person must be one who has never caused pain to another soul. The Hakeem seized the moment and declared, Your Majesty, I am the greatest physician in this city. My soil is surely the finest. But the mullah stopped him. No, Sultan, the Hakeem's soil contains the tears of the poor. It would make you even sicker. The king sent his soldiers throughout the entire city to find someone who was truly at peace and had never committed oppression. By evening, the soldiers returned empty-handed. Not a single wealthy or prominent person in the entire city was found to be genuinely at peace, because everyone was crushed beneath the Hakeem's tyranny and fear. Finally, the soldiers brought back a poor farmer who had been found sleeping in his field. When asked whether he was happy, he said, Alhamdulillah, I have nothing to lose, so I have no fear. The mullah turned to the king. Sultan, do you see where true peace lives? The Hakeem made you dependent on medicines and stole your peace of mind so that you would remain forever in his debt. For the first time, the king recognized his own mistake. The Hakeem's face went pale. The mullah had torn the curtain from his empire of fear. The king ordered all the Hakeem's vaults to be opened, but the mullah said, Sultan, the real prescription still remains. The king's court had now transformed into a court of justice. On one side, Hakeem Luqman Saani trembled in his golden robes. On the other, Mulla Nasruddin stood in complete serenity. When the king saw the effect of the farmer's soil and the mullah's words, he understood that the real illness was not in his body but in his system, which this cruel Hakeem had corrupted. The king declared in a thundering voice, Mullah, you have opened my eyes. This Hakeem has robbed my people of their peace in the name of medicine. Now you tell me what is the cure for this deceiver. The mullah stroked his beard and replied with a smile, Sultan, the Hakeem has for years sold fake medicines and stolen people's peace. His cure is neither prison nor the gallows. His real cure is that same golden scale on which he used to weigh people's desperation. The Mulla Nasruddin then ordered all the Hakeem's vaults to be brought to the middle of the marketplace. When the vaults were opened, so much gold and coin poured out that the debt of the entire city's poor population could have been cleared 10 times over. The Hakeem's face had turned white. The man who had enslaved people just yesterday was now himself crushed beneath the weight of his own sins. The Mulla Nasruddin stood in the marketplace and announced in a loud voice, O people of this city, from this day forward, no one is in need of this Hakeem. All this wealth which was snatched from you through oppression and deception is today returned to you with justice. The Hakeem, weeping, grabbed the Mulla Nasruddin's feet and begged for forgiveness. Mulla Nasruddin, forgive me. I was blinded by greed. The mullah raised him firmly and said, Hakeem Sahib, do not ask forgiveness from me. Ask it from those sick children and helpless mothers to whom you gave death and slavery in exchange for medicine. The door to forgiveness opens only when the hand of oppression stops. The king immediately decreed that the Hakeem's royal license be revoked forever, all his property be confiscated, and a free hospital be established for the city. The Hakeem was ordered to sweep the city's streets, so that he might learn to value the earth and the people he had once ground beneath his heel. Joy swept through the city. People embraced one another and chanted the name of Mulla Nasruddin. The wall of tyranny had fallen. Truth had triumphed. The next morning, as the first ray of sunlight touched the city's walls, Mulla Nasruddin packed his few belongings and prepared to mount his donkey. The king tried to stop him. Mulla Nasruddin, a physician and judge like you, is what this kingdom needs. Why not stay as my royal advisor? The mullah gave a meaningful smile and replied, Sultan, I only wrote the prescription of justice. Now it is your task to follow it. I am a traveler, I must go to the next city, where perhaps another tyrant is stealing people's rights. Then he paused and added, Remember, Sultan, a true king, is one in whose court the prayer of the poor and the justice of the wealthy are weighed equally. As Mulla Nasruddin passed through the city gates, that same old father and his son, now fully recovered, came to bid him farewell with prayers and blessings. The Mulla Nasruddin looked at them and delivered his final words, standing up for what is right, that is true courage. As long as there is fear in your hearts, some Hakeem or another will keep oppressing you. From this tale of Mulla Nasruddin, we learn no matter how grand the shop of tyranny may be, a single sigh of justice can bring it crashing down. True bravery is not measured by how much power you hold, but by whether you raise your voice for the oppressed. Remember, greed blinds a person, and wealth earned through wrongdoing turns even medicine into poison. Always be content with what is lawful, and learn to win hearts rather than chase greed, because after death, a person lives on through their deeds, not their vaults.